So are you thinking about buying a home and you're like wondering what the next steps are and how you would choose a mortgage lender? Well, you are in the right place because today we are going to break it down and tell you all the stuff you need to know about choosing a lender. Stick with us. My name is Julie Spaulding. I sell real estate here in the Kansas City market with Better Homes and Gardens. And today I am joined by Greg Hall. He is with Caliber Home Loans and he has been in the business for a while. He won't let me tell you how many years, but it's been a little bit.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. So he is going to break down for us what we need to know about choosing a mortgage lender. So Greg, you've been with Caliber Home Loans for a while. What advice do you have for us as far as if someone wants to choose a lender, how do you think they should go about that?
Yeah, I've got some thoughts. I have done this for a while. I think I was just looking it up because I guess it's been since 1997. So I'm doing loans now for people who weren't even alive when I started in the mortgage business. So I do have some thoughts after 20 some years on the best way to approach it. And then I can just tell you what, if it was me or if it was one of my kids, and I wasn't in the lending business, what I would recommend that they do. And this applies to their agent as well. So, whether it's a mortgage lender, real estate agent, insurance agent, et cetera, I would tell them to look for really three different things. Number one, local. To me, there's value in finding somebody who is a local person who works and lives in the area that you're looking to buy a home. They just know things about the area and about the process that somebody working from a call center from the East Coast or West Coast, they're just simply not going to know. Again, I know the agents, I know the title companies, et cetera, et cetera. So I would look, again, first and foremost for a local lender. And there's a lot of good local lenders in Kansas City. You don't need to deal with somebody elsewhere. There's a lot of people that do a great job. Second thing I would look for is somebody who's experienced. Again, no offense to the newbies, I was new once, and you were too, but can tell you there are things that I know now that I didn't know 20 years ago or 15 years ago or 10 years ago or 5 years ago. I'm a better loan officer today than I was just a few years ago. So,
and I just want to say you're very good at staying on top of the market. Things change, right? And you've kind of seen that fluctuation. You've seen the different phases of the market, higher interest rates, lower interest rates, all those different.
Yeah, I don't know how many market cycles I've been through, but it's been a few. So the ups and downs and kind of what to expect. And I think that experience is valuable to a client. And then the last thing I would look for, and this is probably the trickiest one, is somebody who's trustworthy. Because most of us will make a decent first impression, we wouldn't be in the people business, but that's where I think a recommendation from an agent, so if you're working with an agent already, ask them who they work with and who they recommend. If you're starting with the lender, you'll want to ask your lender, is there an agent that they so it goes both ways. Then I would also get online. I know I do this anytime I'm thinking about buying something. I'm going to get on and I'm going to look at some reviews. So look for some reviews for your mortgage lender as well. They should have some reviews out there that are not too hard to find. So read through those reviews, see if what their other clients are saying about them clicks with you.
And I also think you and I have similar business styles, and we get a lot of our business from referrals.
Right.
So if you're out there and you're looking, it doesn't matter if you start with a mortgage lender or you start with a real estate agent. One of the best ways to do that is to get referrals, and most of your business comes from referrals, and so does mine.
Right.
And so that's another option, as well as going online and just kind of talking with a few people. You'll get a sense of that person that works with your style as well.
Right, and it's important, not to get off track, but that the lender and the agent work well together and work hand in hand and have good communication, because we work hand in hand, and if we can work well as a team, that's just going to make the process much better for the home buyer.
Yeah. And so you mentioned the word process. So both Greg and I have a process that we like to take buyers as well as sellers through. You don't work with sellers much, but and so this process is important, and it helps our businesses, it helps our clients get through the process with fewer hiccups, right?
Correct.
Real estate's always gonna have some transactions are gonna have some hiccups, but we like those to be just little moguls. We don't like any big
Right.
mountains to be happening. So tell us a little bit about your process. I know the beginning part is important for you.
So yes, I do have a process that I developed over a 20-year period of time, and when I stick to the process, things tend to go smoothly.
Funny
if
how
I,
that works,
yeah,
right?
if I deviate, then sometimes we get some hiccups. So I don't deviate. And to me, I break up the process into three different categories. The before, so this is the pre-approval part of buying a home. The during, which would be when you're under contract to closing, and then the after, which is after you've closed and after you're now a happy homeowner.
Right.
And again, this is all based on the premise that I want my clients to be happy, and I want them to be successful homeowners. So a lot of that's just a matter of education and spending the time with them to make sure that they are comfortable with what's going on. So as far as the before part of the process, that's where I ask a lot of questions. So to me, that would be a red flag if your mortgage lender or if your agent isn't asking you a lot of questions. Then I think that's a bit of a red flag. My goal is to get to know these people, get to know what their wants are, what their desires are, what they're really looking for in a home, and then to educate them about the process in a fair amount of detail so that they're comfortable and understand what's going on.
And I think that's what sometimes buyers don't understand is they think that there's just one way to do it. And that's not true. There's several different ways and different options and different tools and things that make it each client a little bit different. And so having someone that's experienced and that you trust and that asks those questions beforehand is actually very important.
Right. And I've seen, and I know people. I talk to people. I've seen, who talk about how they can do a pre-approval in 10 minutes, send the pass the client off to their whatever assistant, and then they never talk to them again, and they just magically own a home. That's about as far from the way I do it as you can get. So I spend a substantial amount of time, a lot of it without the client, but we'll have a 10 or 15 minute initial conversation, just kind of what I call a discovery call, learn a little bit about what they're doing. And then I'll spend probably on average 90 minutes prepping for a pre-approval meeting, and then we'll have a 60 to 90 minute pre-approval meeting with the clients and with the borrowers, basically walking through the process of buying a home and financing a home and that sort of thing. So my goal by the time that they're done is that they're confident, they understand the process, they understand their numbers, there's not going to be any surprises along the way, and they feel when they find the right house, they're ready to make an offer and feel good about it.
Nobody wants surprises along the way, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this before, but at some point you're going to need to know all this information, and you can wait. You can get it up front and know exactly where you are, or you can wait and learn about it in the process, and sometimes learn about things that you didn't know that you should have known at the beginning. So it's important.
Just a matter of being proactive instead of reactive to me.
That's a good point.
So
I like that. Yeah.
There we go. So, and then my second piece of the process would be during. So that would be once your agents found you a house, you submitted an offer's been accepted, so now you're under contract. So that's basically when your loan gets submitted to underwriting and et cetera, et cetera. And frankly, this should be the smoothest part. This would be the easiest part of the whole thing. If we've done a good job up front, then this is really going to be smooth sailing. So this is where most people talk about, here, boy, we're going to do this, this, and this. To me, this is like, listen, this is the easy part. There's, we'll get your loan done, and my motto is close on time as promised with no surprises. And again, the better job we've done up front, then the more likely that's going to happen.
Yeah. And Greg and I have done a lot of transactions over the last 10 years that I've been in real estate, and 100% on time and no surprises. So, I mean, there's always a few once in a while, but not real surprise, but anyway, So 100% been on time, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, good. And then the final piece would be the after. So you
Yep.
you closing day, yay, you're now a homeowner. That's when, frankly, most lenders disappear, and most agents disappear.
yeah.
Now, again, we all say we want to be your lender for life or your agent for
Yeah.
life, but trust me, from experience, most of the time you don't hear from them again.
Right.
And I don't know what the statistics are. 80% of the people can't remember who did their mortgage or
Right.
who did their, who sold them their house 4 or 5 years down the road. So,
Yep.
So my thoughts are, as far as if I was going to value each piece of this process, I would say the before process is probably 30 to 35% of the value that I can give to a buyer. Again, that upfront work to educate and to make sure that the process is as smooth as possible. During 15-20%, again, that should be smooth sailing if we've done the right things up front. And then the after, which again, most people are non-existent, to me, that's probably 50% of my value to you as a homeowner is going to come after you own the home. So there are certain things that I do, there are certain services I pay for you to receive, and then just time and effort that I put in to make sure that I continue to educate.
And people don't always realize that's
Right.
important. But
Right.
this is your largest purchase. It's your largest debt.
Yes,
So it's just
yes.
largest. But this is important because you want someone to, things are changing. Your life is changing. You need to have somebody that you trust that's going to kind of be with you during that process.
Yeah, and I'll often ask people that I didn't do their loan, who's managing your mortgage? They're like, what do you managing my mortgage? What do you mean? Well, if you've had a financial advisor, you're probably having a meeting with them once a year or maybe more often than that. You should be doing the same thing with your mortgage. Again, at the beginning, it's probably the largest debt that you have. So I just put you into debt for $300,000
For 30 years.
Yeah, now we're going to work on getting you out of debt, making sure that it's always ideal. Again, if there's opportunities to shorten your term, reduce your rate, et cetera, different programs that may come out or may not. My goal is to help you get out of debt and to be, basically work myself out of a job, which, not only have I done this long enough that people who were not born yet are buying houses, but I've also done it long enough that I've got, a very significant number of clients who have paid their house off. And that's the ultimate goal, is to help you be successful.
It's a good goal.
Yeah,
It's good.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, if they have questions, you're always online, and you're able to. We'll leave all of his contact information down there in the bottom in the comments, and then also if you want to know kind of the steps of walking through just actually the buying process, not so much the mortgage process, watch this video that I have, and that will take you through that kind of analogy of baseball. It's one of my favorite ones. So. Thank you so much for being here. That was great information. You will be back. You're going to see Greg again. He's going to have some good information for us in the future. So thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. And remember, you deserve to love where you live.